Before we get into it, I want to give a big thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. NordVPN is an easy to use and incredibly effective way to protect your privacy and security online. I tried at least 3 other VPN providers before NordVPN, but Nord is by far the easiest and fastest option I found. You just install the app on your desktop and mobile device, and with a simple click, your online activity becomes encrypted, which allows you to stop large companies and governments from monitoring and manipulating your presence online. And with Article 13 and other recent attacks on net neutrality, using NordVPN is no longer an option for me, it is a necessity. Nord gives you access to thousands of servers around the world, and connecting to a server in a different country means you can get quick and safe access to all the content available in that country as if you were there. NordVPN is currently offering an incredible deal when you go to nordvpn.com/AnimeUproar, 75% off a 3-year plan, plus if you use the code AnimeUproar right now, you will receive an extra month for free. That's nordvpn.com/AnimeUproar, or just click the link in the description, but please act now, this is a limited time offer. What up guys, Goes in here for AnimeUproar, and today we are going to be explaining how each member of the 10 Commandments, including previous member Meliodas, relate to their commandment. We will also pay attention to the special power that comes along with the specific commandment. This video idea was actually suggested on my Every Character's Sin Explained video, and then I got curious about the commandments and wanted to do more research on them, and next thing you know, here we are, so feel free to leave a suggestion for a future video in the comments, and you might just see it pop up in your feed in the near future. Make sure to like and subscribe for more 7 Deadly Sins videos, and if you're already subscribed, make sure to hit that notification bell so you actually get notified when new videos come out. Now, without further ado, let's jump into the video. Let's start with Fraudrin, the commandment of selflessness. Selflessness is defined as concern more with the needs and wishes of others than with one's own. The commandment appears to have such an effect that whoever in his presence harbors feelings of selfishness and greed will lose their memories, feelings, and their whole sense of self. Obviously, since in many ways, the 10 Commandments were the antagonists of the story for a long time, their specific commandments, which all seem to suggest positive virtues, will be ironic when it comes to their character. Fraudrin was responsible for killing Liz. He framed the 7 deadly sins for Zarathus's death, and no doubt did other terrible stuff. However, he does, in the end, live up to his commandment of selflessness. Before, he didn't understand selflessness. We get a flashback of him talking to Gother after Meliodas left the demon side during the Holy War. Fraudrin assumes Meliodas acted selfishly at first and fled from the war, but Gother tells him that Meliodas didn't flee. He threw himself into the fight for the sake of the one he loves. He asks Fraudrin if he can relate, and he says, "No, I can't." He could not relate to putting someone else's wishes and desires above his own. However, fast forward 3,000 years to the moment when Meliodas is about to kill Fraudrin. Fraudrin decides to self-destruct and take everyone with him to the grave. Griamore rushes in. He traps Fraudrin and himself in one of his defensive barriers and begs him not to kill his dad or anyone else. Fraudrin, while he was in Dreyfus's body, has come to love Griamore as his own son. Although he didn't want to be able to relate to feelings of love that make you prioritize others over yourself, he suggests that he can now relate to such feelings thanks to Griamore. Rather than going out with a bang and potentially taking Meliodas and his loved ones with him, Fraudrin prioritizes Griamore's wishes and everyone's safety and willingly gives himself over to Meliodas to be brutally killed. In the end, his final act is an act of selflessness. He shows that he is more concerned with the needs and wishes of Griamore than his own. Before Fraudrin, the demon Gother, the creator of the doll Gother that we know, possessed the commandment of selflessness. Because the commandment could curse anyone with self-interest or ambition, and could even affect demons in the demon world, the demon king who gifted the demon Gother with the commandment imprisoned him for 500 years. At first, King Ingloxinia's body thinks that demon Gother is acting selfishly when he takes advantage of the turmoil during the Holy War to escape from jail. However, Gowther also proves to be selfless. He explains that his goal is to be a free man, so that he could end the Holy War. The demon Gowther sacrifices his own life in order to end the Holy War, at least temporarily. One of his final requests is not for himself, but for the doll Gowther. He asks Diane and King to be his friends and lead him down the right path. He is concerned for the doll Gowther in his final moments and not for himself. He then proceeds to use a forbidden spell with Gowther's help that tampers with everyone's memories of the Archangel Mael, including the memories of the gods, the Demon King, and the Supreme Deity. Since this spell required so much power, the demon Gowther needed his doll's help, and even with it, still needed to use every last drop of his life force to activate it. Thus, he willingly died so that he could stop the war and all of the suffering that it caused. His final act, as with Fraudrin, was an act of selflessness. We should also look at our Gowther, the doll, because he can also be said to have possessed the commandment of selflessness with his creator. In fact, Fraudrin says that it was Gowther's own commandment that erased his memories and feelings. At times he seems selfish, like when he hurts Gila and her brother so that he can better understand the feeling of love. However, this is usually the result of him simply not knowing what's right and what's wrong. At his core, with his memories and feelings intact, Gowther is a selfless person. Although he can't cure her, he is willing to give up his own life if it would save his lover Nadja. Furthermore, later on in the series, we see that he is willing to risk his own life for his friends and to help Mael out, who is suffering because of the memory-altering spell that Gowther and his creator used to stop the Holy War. Luckily, he didn't have to sacrifice his life like the others, but he has shown through his actions that he is often a selfless person. Next, let's look at Galan, the commandment of truth. Being truthful means being honest. It is the opposite of lying to someone, which is why the commandment of truth turns anyone who lies in Galan's presence to stone, and it applies to the user as well. Only those who are actually aware that they are telling a lie are affected by the commandment's curse. Interestingly enough, after he absorbs the commandment, Mael is able to use it to cancel out Gowther's illusions. Galan doesn't get as much character development as Fraudrin, but we do know that he is forced to be an honest guy because of his commandment, which will turn him to stone if he lies or goes back on his word. In the end though, he can't live up to his commandment. Against Escanor he says, and I quote, "Galan of Truth never goes against his word. Let's fight to the death." However, he gets so scared when he witnesses Escanor's immense power that he begins to run away, before either one of them is dead. Because he goes back on his word, his commandment activates, turning him to stone. So props to Escanor, who was OP enough to turn Galan of Truth into a liar. Hashtag praise the sun. Droll possessed the commandment of patience. Droll is the founder of the giant clan, and the strongest giant in history. Droll towers over other giants in size. He's the creator of Droll's dance, and the name for Baelor's eye comes from his human name, Baelor, since he has the ability to determine the strength of his opponents and even read their minds just by looking at them. His skills and accomplishments are beyond impressive. Now let's take a closer look at his commandment. Patience is defined as the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. His big challenge came when Zeldris easily defeated him in the past and hurt his pride. As Meliodas explained, Droll always aimed to be the strongest, and Zeldris trampled on that dream and crushed his pride. Zeldris gave him two options, to die or join the 10 Commandments. Droll chose to join the 10 Commandments on the spot. At that time, he did not live up to the commandment of patience. He did not tolerate his defeat well, nor did he delay his decision until he could figure out the right path. However, he learns through Diane's example that he could have found an alternative path if he practiced patience. He could have run away, but he couldn't tolerate having his pride crushed and jumped to the wrong decision on the spot. Eventually, he learns the error of his ways and leaves the 10 Commandments along with Gloxinia. Unfortunately, the specific curse associated with the commandment of patience is still unknown. Gloxinia, the first fairy king, possessed the commandment of repose. Repose is defined as a state of rest, sleep, or tranquility. This is the opposite of the way Gloxinia behaved when he thought that the human Ro had killed his sister. Gloxinia completely loses himself to his anger and brutally kills the human, even though he actually saved his sister. Unlike King, who manages to keep his cool in the end, and as a result stops his spirit spear in time, Gloxinia cannot maintain his tranquility and thus mistakenly jumps to the wrong conclusion. He kills Ro and doesn't even check to find out that his sister is actually alive. However, Gloxinia eventually realizes that he was wrong. He becomes much more tranquil and clear-headed as the series goes on, and he realizes that he made a mistake and that he should have acted like King did. He realizes that Ro wasn't really a bad guy and that he even came back in the form of Oslo to watch over his sister and what's precious to her. So eventually he regains his tranquility and in doing so manages to live up to the commandment of repose. As with Droll's commandment, the effects of Gloxinia's commandment are still unknown. Grey Road was the commandment of pacifism. Pacifism is the belief that any violence, including war, is unjustifiable under any circumstances, and that all disputes should be settled by peaceful means. Grey Road's commandment corresponds with the Thou Shalt Not Kill commandment. The commandment's curse activates if anyone kills in her presence. That person will have their time stolen from them and rapidly age until they die. Grey Road is able to use curse magic on people so that she can defeat them without resorting to killing them. For instance, she is able to curse Hauser so that all 5 of his senses are cut off. Additionally, she can turn people into demons, and as Fraudrin points out, that leaves most of her opponents with only 2 options. They can kill the monsters while they're incubating and die thanks to Grey Road's commandment, or be killed by the monsters once they're done incubating. Ironically, although Grey Road cannot directly kill people, she is responsible for indirectly killing many. Unlike some other commandments who get more character development, she does not turn over a new leaf. She does not end up actually living up to her commandment in a virtuous way, like Fraudrin, Droll, and Gloxinia eventually do. Melascula was the commandment of faith. Faith is defined as complete trust or confidence in someone or something. As Melascula explains to Bond, everyone's heart possesses something they have faith in and believe in. Whether it's a god, the sword, or a lover, it's something very precious to them. But people's hearts are weak. They lose their faith over the smallest matters. It's a vice. No matter how many people harbored distrust before me, their eyes will burn. In Bond's case, if he had doubted or hated Elaine even for a moment, his eyes would have burned, but he had complete unshakable faith in her, so he was fine. In the official 7 Deadly Sins character guidebook, Melascula's dream/hope was the revival of the Demon King. Although she probably didn't pick the right person to be faithful to, she did embody her commandment because of how faithful she was to the Demon King, who was pretty much a god to the demons. She was faithful to him until the end, unlike most of the other 10 commandments who came to doubt the Demon King and chose to prioritize other things rather than being faithful to him. Melascula takes on all of the 7 deadly sins and says, "On behalf of the Demon King, I will punish you for your sins." She risks her life over and over again for the Demon King and eventually loses to the sins. However, it can be said that she was indeed faithful right up to the end. She proved worthy of the title Melascula of the Faith. Derriere, the commandment of purity. Purity is defined as freedom from immorality, especially of a sexual nature. At first glance, it seems deeply ironic that a villain of the series can be a moral person. After all, one of the first things she does is attack Meliodas, our protagonist. You also wouldn't expect the commandment of purity to go around wearing nothing except patches of darkness here and there. You might expect her to dress more modestly. However, these are mostly superficial, surface-level observations. In truth, Derriere proves to be a moral person. When we get a glimpse of what happened 3,000 years ago, we see that Derriere seems ready to trust Elizabeth until Ludoshel makes it look like Elizabeth tricked the demons. Derriere only gets violent after she witnesses a huge number of demons, including her sister, being killed by the goddesses right before her eyes. But who wouldn't go crazy in that situation? Later, she doesn't want to take part in the fighting anymore. She just wants to live a quiet life with Monspeet in a human village. Derriere even desperately wishes to save the human souls that Esterosa wants to devour. Eventually, after Esterosa kills Monspeet, the person most important to Derriere, we find out that Esterosa was actually Mael. At that point, Derriere actually decides to try and help Mael and save him from the commandments. Despite the fact that he killed the man she loved, she decides to sacrifice her life in order to try and help him and everyone else by ending the Holy War. It doesn't really get any more moral than that. In the end, Derriere definitely lived up to the commandment of purity. Unfortunately, we never learned about the curse that comes with her commandment. We never learned how the curse would affect people who are impure in Derriere's presence. Monspeet was the commandment of reticence. which has also been referred to as the commandment of silence. Reticence is defined as a kind of reserve, wanting to avoid communication and not wanting to offer any more information than is necessary. With Monspeed's commandment, those who expressed hidden feelings or emotions in his presence would have their voices blocked. For these reasons, Monspeed could never share his true feelings to Derriere, who he loved. Monspeed's commandment is reflected in the fact that he is often drawn without a mouth. He also keeps his original power and how it works a secret. As he explains to Estarossa, a magician doesn't reveal his tricks. He purposely kept his power a secret so he could catch his enemies off guard in the future. It actually almost worked, and it looked like he would have defeated Estarossa if Derriere didn't let her guard down. But alas, she did, and Monspeed sacrificed himself for her. Right up to the end, Monspeed kept his secret. Before he sacrifices himself, Monspeed apologizes to Derriere in his mind. He thinks that he won't tell her what he wanted to say because he will no longer be able to stay by her side and protect her. So even in the end, he didn't want to offer any information that he didn't deem necessary. And since he wouldn't be around anymore, he didn't think it was necessary to share his feelings with Derriere. Monspeed is one of my favorite commandments. You can let me know who your favorite commandment is in the comments. We also know that Estarossa could use the commandment of reticence to make it so that King was unable to use his magic until he transformed to his new OP King of Rock form. Zeldris was the commandment of piety. Anyone who turns their back on Zeldris while he possesses the commandment becomes cursed into serving the Demon King, and Zeldris his representative. Piety is defined as a belief or point of view that is accepted with unthinking, unconventional reverence. Zeldris' reverence or deep respect is directed towards his father, the Demon King, for a large portion of the series. In chapter 304, Zeldris thinks to himself that Meliodas has something he never had, the courage to make an enemy out of the world for the sake of those he treasured most. Even before Meliodas fell in love with Elizabeth, Zeldris loved Gelda. However, unlike Meliodas, when the vampire clan became an enemy of the demon clan, Zeldris did not fight against his father for the sake of his lover. Instead, he sealed all of the vampires away, including Gelda, when his father ordered him to execute them. Obviously, he didn't directly follow his father's orders, but he did take his father's side over his lover's. Later, after he took over Meliodas' body, the Demon King tells Zeldris that his loyalty has always been his one saving grace. Nevertheless, eventually Zeldris decides to stand against his father. He eventually realizes that his father is an unjust god, and that loyalty to him means forsaking Gelda, his brother, and a world where everyone can live in peace, the things he cares about the most. So although it can be said that he betrayed the Demon King, he did so because in the end he chose to be loyal to the love of his life instead. Kalmadios possessed the commandment of piety before Zeldris did. From the little we see of him, he seems to be blindly loyal to the Demon King. He hates the goddesses and everyone who's taken their side, calling them little goddess lapdogs. When Meliodas arrives to the battle scene, Kalmadios calls Meliodas using the honorific Sama after his name, which is similar to saying Lord Meliodas. It shows that he has great respect for him, the son of the Demon King. He is also shocked when Meliodas seemingly betrays him by taking the side of a fairy and a giant. The fact that Meliodas didn't try to use words to get Kalmadios to switch sides shows that he felt that Kalmadios' loyalty to the Demon King was too strong to even attempt swaying him. Kalmadios, from what we've seen, seemed to have perfectly embodied his commandment. Lastly, we'll talk about the commandment of love. Meliodas possessed the commandment of love before Estarossa aka Mael did. All who harbor hatred in the presence of the commandment of love will lose their ability to hurt others. The commandment can stop people from grasping their swords, clenching their fists, or even walking towards the possessor. Love can be defined in many ways, but one way is a feeling of strong and constant affection for a person. For Meliodas, this person ended up being Elizabeth. Another useful definition of love is an unselfish, loyal, and benevolent concern for the good of another. Before Elizabeth, Meliodas was the commander of the 10 Commandments. He was on track to eventually become the Demon King. He was greatly admired by his younger brother and the other members of the Demon Clan, yet he gave all that away so that he could unselfishly help Elizabeth, the woman he loved. He went from being the most respected member of the demon clan to being a traitor and its most hated member because of love. In fact, the whole series revolves around Meliodas' love for Elizabeth. He talks about how he'd have no reason to live without her, and his goal from the beginning is to fulfill her wish. Thus, love is definitely the perfect commandment for Meliodas, because ever since he met Elizabeth, his love for her has driven his actions. Ironically, it is because he falls in love that he actually ends up losing his commandment of love to Estarossa, aka Mael. In the beginning, Estarossa appears like quite the villain. He kills our main character Meliodas, at least temporarily. However, even as he's hurting Meliodas, he speaks of love. He says what he's doing because he loves Meliodas. Even as he kills him, he has tears flowing down his eyes and says, "Goodbye, brother, my beloved brother." He is being honest. His tears and the fact that he's not being affected by the commandment of love are proof that he doesn't hate Meliodas, despite the fact that he's doing something as horrible as killing him. As the series goes on, Estarossa doesn't act very loving, to say the least. Not only does he fight against the sins, he also kills his fellow commandments Monspeet and Derriere. As we find out later though, this is a side effect of the commandments that he absorbed. Since he's a goddess, the darkness is negatively impacting his psyche. We see that before he had a commandment, a child Mael couldn't even kill a single bug. We also find out that he loved Elizabeth too, just like Meliodas did, so in that way it seems fitting that they both shared the same commandment of love. When he finally gets freed from the power of the commandments that were destroying him, he's back to his normal, more loving self. However, even the Mael of the past made mistakes. He killed demons, including Demon Gother's lover, because he thought he was freeing them from their impure cages. He eventually sees the error of his ways and chooses to help end the holy war. Mael, despite the shame he feels after what he's done while he thought he was Estarossa, goes on to risk his life in order to help those people who were previously his enemies, including Gother, who turned him into Estarossa in the first place. He acts selflessly, helping those who hurt him, so you can say that he definitely lived up to the commandment of love. However, as with Meliodas, he had to lose the commandment of love before he could fully embody love. And that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, definitely smash that like button to let me know. If you haven't, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified when future 7 Deadly Sins videos come out. Let me know which commandment story is your favorite in the comments below, and let me know what 7 Deadly Sins video you would like to see in the future. Thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. You can find their incredible deal in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, see you, Space Cowboys.